When Byron Pitts was a child, he came home with bad grades. Well, after a while, his parents had him tested, which revealed that he couldn't read. Fast forward many, many years, and the boy who nearly flunked out of school is now one of the biggest journalists in TV news.
Byron Pitts is an Emmy Award-winning journalist. Over the course of his 30-year career, he's covered some of the biggest news stories of our time.
Perhaps he will...
But what you may not know is Byron struggled with stuttering and couldn't read until 3rd grade. Throughout his travels, Byron met others who faced tough circumstances in life. And he shares some of their remarkable stories in his book, Be the One.
Byron Pitts is here with us now, and we welcome you to the 700 Club. How nice to have you
Honored
here.
to be with you. Thank you so much.
Talk a little bit, if you will, about the struggle that you had with reading, because you were into grade school. I mean, it wasn't like you were far down the line, but,
Sure.
but other children were reading and you were not.
Sure. I didn't learn to read until I was 12, stuttered until I was 20. There's a school of thought that children learn to read from birth to 7 and read to learn 7 on. Wow. And so the belief is that I must have missed something in those first 7 years of life, and my parents were, their relationship was falling apart. Both my parents worked multiple jobs and older siblings. So I just got passed through, and I was getting social promotions. Basically because at the time, when I was in school, in public school in Baltimore, my hometown, if you were polite, didn't cause trouble, that got you a C-.
Yeah.
Right?
right
yeah.
off the books.
Right, exactly.
How did your mom handle that? Because that's tough for a parent, you know, when you feel like your child is struggling and you're not a teacher. What did she do?
My mother, her name is Clarice Pitts. God called her home about 4 years ago. A woman of great faith. My mother believed there's nothing you couldn't overcome with hard work and prayer. And so she said, son, you know, we're going to, when we got the diagnosis, because these experts recommended that I be, it was their belief that I was mentally retarded.
Really?
And should be, yes, and should be, their words, and I should be institutionalized. And my mother's like, okay, if that's God's destiny for my child, so be it. But between here and there, we're going to work as hard as we can. We're going to look for help.
Wow. And
she found an adult literacy program that, and begged her way in to get me in. But a woman of great faith.
How are you feeling along the way with all of this? Because that, you know, that becomes in some children's lives sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Sure, sure. I mean, I remember telling my mom once that I was about 11 years old and having to relearn the alphabet, and I was struggling with that. And I said, Mom, I'm stupid. She's like, baby, you're not stupid. God has a purpose for you. There she is, Clarice Pitts. A wonderful, elegant woman. And we just prayed at it, worked at it. And my mother also, though, believed in hard work, and she was demanding. Someone asked my mom once, how was she able, as a single parent, as a divorcee, to send 3 kids to college?
Wow.
My mom said it was simple. I told each child, you will go to college, or I'll beat you to death. Right? So there was some old school...
That works.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to pray about it. That don't work.
Now, talk about the note you got from a teacher in 6th grade, because was that sort of the beginning of the turnaround for you? Yeah,
it was. I was able to bring a note home from school and read it to my mother out loud, where before I would just hand it to her and gauge her reaction. And I remember my mother, who was a woman of great faith, never got particularly emotional very often, and she teared up. And that gave me great joy. And so for most of my, I'm a proud mama's boy. So most of my life has been about making her proud. One of the reasons why I aspired to work for network television was just so my mother and my grandmother could see me on television.
See you.
This is before cable TV. So
but Byron, I mean, here you go off to college, and I want you to talk about where you were at in the struggle of all of this at that point. I mean, just getting off to college was a huge accomplishment, but good grief, to choose journalism of all things. I mean, it's nice to have your mom be able to see you on TV, but I mean, like, really? What went into that whole process and that whole decision-making?
I learned my faith in my mother's knee, and my mother taught me to believe that God has a calling for all of us, and that there are no stumbling blocks in life, only stepping stones. And so my challenges with literacy, my challenges with speech were gifts that God gave me to figure out. And so we thought, okay, if those are 2 things that I struggle with and that I now appreciate, like I have a deep appreciation for words. I know what it means to feel powerless, because I felt that because of my issues with growing up. And as a journalist, my fundamental job, I believe, is to shed light in dark places, afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted, give voice to the voiceless, And that felt godly to
Like
my
it
mother and to me.
fit right into your...
Exactly right. Exactly right.
So how did you overcome the stuttering? That's not something that you can just say, gee, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Right. Well, I still am a stutterer, but I've learned to manage it. I had a wonderful professor. I mean, I've had wonderful people that I call them angels, that God has brought into my life at different points to teach me different things. I had a wonderful professor in college, Paul Robinson, rough, old school guy. He says, here's what we're going to do, Pitts. We're going to put you on a live radio show. I'm like, but Doc, right? And forced me to deal with it. Now, I would think most speech pathologists would not recommend that technique, but he would have me read the newspaper out loud. He would have me read it with pencils in my mouth so I could feel what it felt like to speak properly.
But here's the thing. You must have had something in you that was willing to endure the process to get to the other side of the bridge. Not everybody's willing to do that.
Well, you know, I had Clarice Pitts.
Yeah, well, I guess so.
Right?
Go Clarice.
And this notion of I mean, the Bible speaks of overcomers. You hear the story of David. Like, I love the story of David before we even get to when he slayed Goliath, but when with the anointing oil.
Yes.
That how God will defy gravity to give people what is theirs. My mother's favorite book next to the Bible was The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. And this notion that I can do all things through Christ. If God be for me, who can be against me? And so, yeah, it's because of God's amazing. Like, I believe every person should have a favorite word. My favorite word is grace.
Yeah, I pretty much like that too.
Unmerited gifts from God.
Yes.
And so all that I have, all I've been blessed with, have been gifts from Him.
Yeah.
And it is a testament not to me or even to my mother, but to God's amazing grace. Yeah.
Be the One, your book, the true stories of teens overcoming hardship with hope.
Yes.
What do you want people to take away from this?
To be encouraged. Like you, I travel a lot, talk to a lot of young people. I'm struck by whether a kid's in Ivy League school or in nobody's school, that they often feel discouraged and worried about what the future holds. You know, you watch the news every day, you think the world's falling apart, right? And I was struck by that. And I want young people to know that there are examples of young people who've overcome horrific things with optimism and with strength. A number of these young people, not all, are young people of great faith. Yeah. And so I believe, like, my calling, I'm a journalist. I'm proud of my profession, proud of what I do. But I believe my purpose at this stage of my life is to encourage people. And this is to encourage young people.
Yeah, don't give up. Boy, I mean, in many ways, your story reminds me, though it certainly has its own specifics, but of Ben Carson. You know, again, a mom who just had powerful impact. So moms and dads, don't give up. Hang in there for your boys and girls.
Oh, no question. No, I think life has taught me that if you have two loving parents, man, that's awesome. And if you're born in the United States, you've won the lottery. Yep. But life has taught me if you just have one person who loves you, in my case, it was my mom. In my extended family, I have a wonderful aunt. I know she's watching this morning from Raleigh, North Carolina. My Aunt Gladys, call her Honey Bun, sweetest woman on earth. So I was surrounded by people who believed in me and prayed for me, and
made a difference.
Yeah,
made a difference. Well, you can be the one too. Byron, thank you so much for the message you bring us. You can read more inspiring stories by getting his book. Boy, for parents, this is a great read, but if you're a teen, read this as well, because you might be the one that God has something specific and special planned for. Books available wherever books are sold, and it's a great read.